Following Pokemon Go's Hisuian Tour last year, I made a video predicting what we would see at a Pokemon Go Sinnoh Tour, and don't think I didn't notice those view numbers creep up as the event drew closer. In that video, I predicted that Niantic had a bit of a problem on their hands and concluded that the Sinnoh Tour would not be very good for the following reasons. 1. The Sinnoh region only has 107 Pokemon. 2. The overwhelming majority of Sinnoh's shiny Pokemon had already been released. And 3, and most importantly, a huge percentage of Sinnoh's Pokemon are either evolutions or pre-evolutions of Pokemon from other generations. What this meant was that there simply wouldn't be much in the way of new and exciting content for players to enjoy, and that prediction turned out to be sorta true. I mean, look, this entire habitat has only 2 Pokemon originally found in Sinnoh. But the reason my prediction was only sort of correct was because Niantic did something to remedy this that I hadn't considered at the time. They turned to Hisuian. Pokemon Legends Arceus was released in 2022 and takes place in the Hisuian region, which is what the Sinnoh region was once known as during a historical period before the events of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. Therefore, it's the Sinnoh region, it's just not called the Sinnoh region. By using this end around, Niantic was able to add Hisuian Pokemon from that game like Voltorb, Growlithe, Sneasel, Quillfish, White Striped Basculin, and the origin forms of Giratina and Palkia. So players had something new to shiny hunt besides Stunky. Though it's pretty funny they didn't add Hisuian Zorua or Sliggoo because, that's future content. But to their credit, they did find a way to partially alleviate what I predicted would be a horrendously bland event. But I'm not the sort of person who reposts what's already common knowledge for the sake of views. I like to look forward, try and anticipate what's coming over the horizon, which is why I thought it'd be fun to run this video back and take a peek at what we might expect from the next iteration of regional tours by making some predictions of what you can expect at Pokemon Go Unova Tour in February 2025. Before we get into specifics, I want to make some very general predictions. 1. There are going to be way more species to hunt. The Unova region boasts 156 Pokemon, which is a huge increase from Sinnoh's 107. 2. Spawns for Pokemon originally discovered in Unova will be much more abundant. Sinnoh's Pokédex contains a staggering 28 evolutions or pre-evolutions from previous generations, which meant that more than 1/4 of the entire region derived from Pokemon already featured in past events, which is why you saw spawns you didn't care about like Eevee, Rhyhorn, and Swinub. A Unova Tour will not have this problem, with 0 connections to previous generations, only future ones. 3. There should be considerably more new shinies released. Excluding regionals or oddballs like Rotom, the Sinnoh Tour premiered exactly 1 new shiny family, Stunky. Currently, there are 17 non-regional, non-legendary Pokemon from Unova that have yet to see their shinies released, at least for now. In addition, there should be more shinies that were previously released but would be new for most players. This was another issue with the Sinnoh Tour, as most of its shinies saw releases in prior community days, Go Fests, or other events where the shiny rates were boosted. I think Niantic learned this lesson and began staggering both shiny releases and shiny boosted events, as there are now many shinies like Solosis, Gothita, and others that will be new for most players. Finally, number 4. Pokemon Go Unova Tour will see a return to the format based on version-exclusive Pokemon. If you were wondering why Niantic didn't make choosing Diamond and Pearl affect any of the event spawns, Stunky is the reason why. In previous iterations, players would choose one of the versions and receive boosted shiny odds for particular Pokemon. For the Johto Tour, players were essentially choosing between shiny Mantine or shiny Phanpy. For the Hisuian Tour, players were choosing between shiny Cacnea, Gulpin, or Surskit. But for the Sinnoh Tour, Niantic had played themselves into a corner because, well, there wasn't anything new. Besides Stunky. If they followed the main series games and previous tour events, players would be choosing between hunting shiny Stunky or shiny Glameow. And since Glameow is a common spawn whose shiny was released almost 4 years ago, everyone but the most die-hard Pokemon Pearl fans would inevitably choose Diamond for the Stunky. But for the Unova region, I predict this format returns and players will get to choose between hunting shiny Gothita and Petalil or shiny hunting Solosis and Cottonee. Okay, those are my very basic predictions based on things that seem pretty common sense. So let's have some fun and take a look at what the event will look like if we just copy-paste the Sinnoh Tour onto Unova. Welcome, trainers, to the Welcome, trainers, to the 2025... Cut me some slack, okay? I don't even have 1,000 subs. Welcome, trainers, to the 2025 Pokemon Go Unova Tour. Okay, so obviously instead of Dialga and Palkia, we have Black and White's box art legendaries, Zekrom and Reshiram. Unless Game Freak releases a game in the next year that adds some other form of these two, we don't have to worry about origin forms. And obviously instead of Chimchar, Turtwig, and Piplup, we have Tepig, Snivy, and Oshawott. Let's start off with the trio of roaming legendaries because this is where you start to see just how much more Unova has to offer. For the Sinnoh Tour, we saw wild spawns of Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf. For the Hoenn Tour, we had wild encounters with Latias and Latios. And for the Johto Tour, you could find Raikou, Entei, and Suicune in the wild. Well, for the Unova Tour, we have not one, not two, but three possible legendary trios. First, there are Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion, the Swords of Justice trio. There's also Tornadus, Thundurus, and Landorus, the Forces of Nature trio. And because Niantic released their Incarnate and Therian forms separately, that's another trio. In the Black and White games, Tornadus and Thundurus were roaming legendaries, so I imagine we will see that trio in the wild. Maybe in both forms? And the Swords of Justice trio will be stashed in research. Jumping right into the spawns, we start off with the Acuity Lakefront habitat from 10 AM to 11 AM and from 2 PM to 3 PM, where you'll find Pikachu wearing Hilbert or Hilda's hat, which are kind of similar to Akari and Ray, so it's not worth changing. In addition, there will be Oshawott, Patrat, Lillipup, Panpour, Pidove, Blitzel, Timpole, Sewaddle, Basculin with both red and blue stripes, Yamask, Deerling Springform, Frillish, Alomomola, Ducklet, and Druddigon. Moving on to 11 AM to noon and 3 PM to 4 PM, let's call it the Wayward Cave habitat, where you will find Hilbert or Hilda Hat Pikachu, Snivy, Pansear, Roggenrola, Woobat, Drillbur, Sawk, Venipede, Dweeble, Galarian Yamask, Deerling Autumn Form, Carablast, Ferroseed, Cubchoo, Cryogonal, Shelmet, and Mindfu. Then from noon to 1 PM and from 4 PM to 5 PM, we have the Great Marsh habitat where you will find, again, Hilbert and Hilda Hat Pikachu, Purloin, Pansage, Munna, Throw, Darumaka, Scraggy, Turtuoga, Archon, Trubbish, Vanillite, Deerling Winter Form, Fungus, Dynamo, Axew, Stunfisk, and Golett. Finally, from 1 PM to 2 PM and 5 PM to 6 PM, there's the Fuego Ironworks habitat, where there will be Hilbert and Hilda Hat Pikachu, Tepig, Audino, Darumaka, Hisuian Zorua, no idea how they're going to handle that, Minccino, Deerling Summer Form, Emolga, Joltik, Clink, LGM, Litwick, Galarian Stunfisk, Heatmore, Durant, and Dino. Incense encounters. As I've said, I believe with the sheer number of spawns in Generation 5, Niantic will go back to using the version-exclusive model for incense spawns like they did for the Hoenn Tour. So the habitats aren't even more overwhelmed with spawns than they are in my model. So you'll choose from either Pokemon Black or Pokemon White, and this will affect what encounters you get from the incense. Regardless of which version, you'll have encounters with unknown letters A, N, O, U, and V. If you choose Pokemon Black, you'll have encounters with Cottonee and Gothita. If you choose Pokemon White, you can expect encounters with Petalil and Solosis. Okay, now let's move into the egg tiers. Unlike Sinnoh, Unova doesn't have a bunch of baby Pokemon that require hatching, but they do still have Pokemon that are typically only found in eggs or were at one time. Think Gible being in the 5-kilometer eggs during the Sinnoh Tour for no reason. So in the 2-kilometer eggs, I think we'll see Pokemon like Timber, Sandile, Clink, Pawniard, Rufflet, Vullaby, and Larvesta. The 5-kilometer egg pool is easily the most malleable, or subject to change. For the Sinnoh Tour, this is where Niantic stashed Pokemon that were new shiny releases but weren't region exclusive, and Gible. For the Unova Tour, that would currently be Sewaddle, Red and Blue Striped Basculin, Hisuian Zorua, Ducklet, all of the Deerlings, Emolga, Dynamo, Mindfu, and Larvesta. When I say malleable, I mean that with a full year between now and the event, if we follow the logic of unreleased non-regional shinies, some of these will probably see a release and thus wouldn't be included here. Moving on to the least malleable egg pool, the coveted 10-kilometer eggs, which are always for releasing shiny regionals. For Unova, these would be Buffalar, which is only found in New York and some surrounding areas, Maractus, which is exclusive to Central and South America, and Sigalith, which is only found in some countries in the Middle East and along the Mediterranean. Okay, let's talk about raids, and I hope you'll forgive me if I skip over 1-star raids, because if you're using raid passes on starter Pokemon that are spawning in the wild anyway, don't. For the Sinnoh Tour, Niantic included the Hisuian starters in the 3-star raids, which if you missed those raid days, you had a chance to grab them. We can map this onto the Unova Tour by including evolved Unova Pokemon that may have their own raid day sometime in the next year, like Hisuian Samurott, again, Hisuian Lilligant, Hisuian Braviary, and King Gambit. Finally, appearing in 5-star raids, we have Pokemon Black and White's box art legendaries Reshiram and Zekrom. Now, like I said, we don't have any origin forms to work with, but we do sort of have another version to slide in here, with Black Kyurem and White Kyurem. You may remember a while back, Black and White Kyurem were accidentally released in Pokemon Go as PvP rewards before Niantic quickly snatched them back. Well, this is what you have to look forward to next year. And finally, we round things out with the release of a paid masterwork research that takes a very long time to complete, as I'm sure most of you are still on step 1 of the Shiny Shaman research. But for 2025, this will get you Shiny Victini. Now obviously these are just predictions. I've certainly gotten some things wrong, but hey, that's part of the fun. But I'm confident that a lot of what you will see here will roughly align with Pokemon Go Tour 2025 in Unova. In which case, thanks for watching, and I'll see you there.